Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, today we are tackling something that honestly terrifies most new investors. We're taking the dense, heavy, 300-page SEC Form 10K and we're turning it into an empowering, actionable roadmap. Look, if you've just started investing, opened one of these massive compliance documents, and immediately felt the overwhelming urge to just close your browser tab, you are absolutely not alone. But stick with me today, because we're going to learn exactly how to read this intimidating filing like a 30-minute treasure map. Picture this high-stakes story because it proves exactly why this document, and specifically its fine print, matters so much. An investor was about to buy shares in a really promising startup. The main financial figures, the ones right up front, looked incredible. But right before pulling the trigger, he noticed something weird hidden deep in the notes to the financial statements. He actually uncovered an undisclosed liability worth 185 million rials. As this quote points out, that single footnote saved him from a devastating 40% loss when the issue finally blew up later on. The big numbers catch the eye, sure, but the real truth? It's always found between the lines. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our comforting roadmap to conquer the 10K together. 1. Marketing fluff versus SEC truth. 2. The 30-minute reading framework. 3. Inside the MD&A. 4. Financials and footnotes. And 5. Spotting crucial red flags. Starting right off with Section 1, Marketing Fluff versus SEC Truth. To be a smart new investor, you really have to understand the playing field. At the end of every fiscal year, you're going to see a massive contrast in how companies present themselves. On one hand, you have the standard annual report. It's packed with glossy photos, colorful graphs, and a highly optimistic letter from the CEO. Fundamentally, it's a marketing document. It's designed to keep existing shareholders happy so they hold on to their stock. But on the other hand, you have the Form 10K. It's incredibly dry, it's strictly audited, and it deliberately strips away all that marketing spin to give you the unvarnished, highly regulated truth. The rules for the 10K are set by the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC. Because of their strict rules, companies can't just cherry-pick the good news. They're legally forced to detail their business operations, their industry risks, and their exact financial results in a completely standardized order. And you know what? That levels the playing field. It means everyone from a billionaire hedge fund manager to a brand new retail investor like you or me gets the exact same objective look at the company's health. Moving on to Section 2, the 30-minute reading framework. So now we know we need the 10K. But how do new investors actually get through hundreds of pages without losing their minds? Well, this brilliantly illustrates how the 10K is actually broken down into specific items, like Item 1 for business, Item 1A for risk factors, and Item 8 for financial statements. Listen, the biggest rookie mistake is trying to read this thing from page 1 to 300 like a novel. You don't read it. You navigate it like a map, jumping straight to the specific items that actually matter for your investment. To do that effectively, we use the Quantilium 30-minute reading framework. The absolute secret here is that just 20% of the report carries 80% of the insight. Here's your timeline. Start with a business overview for the first 5 minutes just to understand exactly how they make money. Then spend 10 minutes on the MD&A highlights to hear management's perspective. Next, dedicate 10 minutes to the financials and cash flow to see if the hard numbers actually match the story. Finally, use your last 5 minutes to scan for specific risks. That's it. Let's move to Step 2 of our framework in Section 3, inside the MD&A section. Once you know what the business does, you jump to the MD&A. This stands for Management's Discussion and Analysis. This is the place where management finally steps out from behind the spreadsheets to speak directly to you. It gives you their own perspective on prior financial performance, their current condition, and what they're projecting for the future. While the rest of the 10K tells you what happened, this is where you discover why it happened. Why did revenue drop in Europe? Why are profit margins suddenly expanding? Leadership has to explain those trends right here. But hey, you have to read this section critically. You're always trying to separate genuine insight from corporate spin. Look for clear, logical trends explaining the performance. If the numbers are bad, beware of management using vague, super complex language to cover it up. Oh, and watch out for repeated one-time adjustments. I mean, if a company has a massive one-time restructuring cost every single year, it's not really a one-time cost, is it? As an investor, your job is to figure out if management is facing challenges head-on or if they're just using corporate jargon to soften the blow of weak results. All right, Section 4, Financials and Hidden Footnote Truths. So we've heard management's story in the MD&A. Now we've got to act like detectives and verify if that story actually holds up by looking at the hard numbers. Let's start with EPS, or earnings per share. This is simply the total net income divided by outstanding shares. To demystify this, think of the income statement like a set of stairs. You start at the very top of the stairs with your total sales revenue, then you literally walk down one step at a time, deducting costs and expenses, materials, salaries, taxes, until you reach the bottom line, which is your net income. But here's a golden rule to remember. Operating cash flow is often a far more important indicator of health than net income. Why? Because net income can be legally altered by accounting assumptions. Cash flow, on the other hand, proves whether the business is actually generating real money. If a company reports massive profits on the income statement, but their operating cash flow is consistently lower than their net income, it might signal poor earnings quality or rising financial risk. Cash is reality. And of course, we cannot forget the footnotes. Tying right back to our opening story, the footnotes are exactly where you find the buried treasure, or the hidden landmines. While a lot of new investors just stop at the clean-looking balance sheet, the pros look down here for crucial disclosures. We're talking significant accounting policies, deferred income taxes, massively underfunded pension plans, and contingent liabilities like pending lawsuits. The fine print is exactly where the accounting tricks hide. Which brings us to our final step. Section 5, spotting crucial financial red flags. So the crucial point is knowing what a genuinely bad sign looks like in a 10K, because these extreme risks could absolutely break the business. The American Association of Individual Investors highlights several massive warning signs you can never ignore. Watch out for frequent restatements of earnings. It means they literally can't get their own math right the first time. Look for sudden management turnover, especially if a CFO resigns right before earnings season. Be on high alert for an auditor issuing a going concern warning, which basically means they aren't sure the company can survive the next 12 months. And finally, any formal disagreements with their accountants, that is a blazing red siren. You're also going to find a section in the 10K specifically called risk factors. But you've got to navigate it strategically. My advice? Ignore the legal boilerplate. Just skip the generic copy-pasted legal jargon that says stuff like, the economy might enter a recession. Duh. Instead, hunt for brand new, company-specific risks that have been added since the previous year's 10K. Newly added risks tied specifically to their revenue pipelines or their liquidity, those often reflect emerging internal problems that the company's lawyers are actively sweating over right now. And finally, our conclusion. Let's wrap this up. We've taken an incredibly intimidating 300-page compliance document and shrunk it into a highly targeted treasure map for new investors. You now know exactly where to look. And I'm going to leave you with this provocative ultimate test. After you apply this 30-minute framework to a company's 10K, reading the business overview, the MD&A, checking the cash flows, and scanning the risks, ask yourself this. Can you explain how this business makes money in just one simple paragraph? If you follow the framework and you still can't answer that basic question clearly, then the business is simply too complex, too risky, or too opaque for your money. Move on to the next one. Thanks for joining me on The Explainer. Keep hunting for those insights, and I'll catch you next time.